Welcome to this technical webinar for EMEA in English. Today we cover logs on the LoadMaster virtual service and client connection failure. To be honest, it will be the other way around because first we do some errors that we can then see in the logs, but that's just a minor thing. Well, I would say we don't lose time. I don't want to waste your time honestly. I want to give you as much info as possible. So what kind of issues could clients have connecting to a load balancer virtual service? They could have an SSL problem or a routing problem to get to the service in the first place, right? So SSL problem, they come with a cipher that we don't, or we offer ciphers they don't want to work with, or we offer a client certificate they don't like to work with. They might connect with a protocol we don't support, like TLS 1.0, not really smart anymore, right? Not secure. So if that is turned off, we don't accept any of those. They might come with an IP address, but we force an SNI hostname. So these could be reasons why they don't even get a handshake in the first place. Then they cannot open a TCP connection because the firewall is not allowing them through the port, maybe. Or there's a routing error. The load balancer has no default gateway to go back or goes back on the wrong interface because the gateway has not been set on the virtual service, right? And then there's also thing, is there a static route that's wrongly going from a wrong interface to the backend server maybe? Could it be that there's transparency enabled, but the server gateway doesn't point back to the load balancer? Or there's subnet originating return enabled. So routing wise, the wrong IP address shows up with the server side. That could also happen. So these are things where nothing will happen on the client side. So when they open a web page, nothing will happen. It will not open, will not be displayed anything. Then there's a second group of errors that is visible to the client. For example, an empty response. So there's no target, no servers allowed, no connection rules matching, something like that. So the handshake has worked. They got the initial connection, but then the load balancer is not allowed to pass them on because he has rules assigned and they don't trigger. The server is not there. The server is not allowed. The content rule is not matching, something like that. So I get an empty response. So that's one visible thing for the client. And the second visible thing for the client would be access denied. So that could happen, of course, based on security. So there might be ESP enabled. So I need to have a certain host name and a certain directory. If you come with something else, 403, access denied, go away, right? Or there's a WAF related thing, like there's a rule triggered, my threshold is full, you have more points created with your request than I allow, boom, access denied, okay? Or intrusion prevention system. Snort rules have been triggered and now the connection is disconnected because one of those rules was triggered there. So that's also possible. Now, how can we troubleshoot this? If there are so many things that could go wrong, whoa, how can we troubleshoot this? So say it that way. When you build a new service on the load balancer, obviously you test. You test if the client goes there and so on. So a load balancer will not start working and then 3 months later, without anyone interfering, stop working. That's not the behavior of a load balancer. It's not happening that way, right? Once the service is working, it's working, full stop, unless someone makes a change. So what we can do is we can enable client logging for SSL errors. If they can't do the handshake, we can, we can log that. So that's something you can enable. You can, of course, check the normal logs on the load balancer, like system messages, or if there's ESP involved, connection, user, or security logs. Also very important. You can create a TCP dump on the IP address of their client coming in to see does the client actually come into the load balance in the first place? You can disable all real servers, set a 200 OK message in the advanced properties on the non-available redirect handling to just see, can the client get to the load balancer virtual service and gets an answer back? Does that routing to the service and back from the service works? So stuff like that. You can fine tune the WAF false positives or maybe even lower the service difficulty. So I always say you start from basic and then you get more complex. So first of all, see if the client can connect. Then see if the client is going through the proper content rule into the proper sub-VS. Then when all of this is running, then you enable ESP if you want to. And if that is running, then you enable WAF, right? So always go from simple to more complex. And I would be a very bad host on a webinar if I don't show you this live in action. So for that, hopefully everything goes to my plans. No, that was the wrong browser. Yes, as you see, I'm in the middle of something else. So here we go. I want to go to my lab. There we go. There's my lab. So this is a load balancer pair, right? Now we have a few services here. Let me just make them more simple so I can show all of those things for you that you need to see. Here as well for ESP. So there we go. So now, from very simple. So we want to show a few things. I have prepared that. So a service is on SSL version 3. Okay, so let's do this. I have a 443 service here. Let's say we do SSL version 3 and nothing else. Just for the sake, and I'm using a default cipher set. And yeah, let's connect to him. So extranet progressdemo.com on 443. HTTPS. So I didn't got any connection. It is not working. Why is it not working? It says, the browser even says to me, no. SSL version or ciphers don't match. I can't connect. No handshake. I can't get there. So what is the normal log telling me? Let's have a look. I have client errors enabled. Let me show you where to do this. On the left-hand side, I'm on 54. So you don't have the troubleshooting error here. On the later versions, you have a troubleshooting section. On the LTSF version, that's not there yet. It's on system log files, debug options. Oh, my bad. My mistake, sorry. Miscellaneous options and then network options. There we go. They changed that from here into the security piece on the later versions. But just to show you that, there is an option called SSL errors. And I've enabled this to all errors. Normally by default, it's on fatal errors only. I now set it to all errors, so I have the client errors as well. That's why I'm seeing this here. And my client is saying, hey, I like to connect, but my browser doesn't do SSL version 3, so the protocol is not supported. Okay, to be expected. Let's change our service. Change the service to do TLS 1.0, but on best practices. There's no cipher in here that allows TLS 1.0. That's why I'm doing this check. So now I'm refreshing this, and you see here, he's not really happy with this. He can't connect. It's not working. So what is the log telling me? No cipher available for this connection. So now TLS 1.0 is something my browser can still handle, but best practice ciphers, they are not, there's no cipher available for TLS 1.0. That's why we didn't got any connection, client connection error. Okay. Good. Now, let's go proper with this. Let's say it's not an issue on the SSL side. Let's say it's SNI hostname. We force an SNI hostname, otherwise there's no handshake. So let's open this HTTPS 10.0.0.112. We can't connect because we got an unrecognized name alert. I wanted host name, but I was given an IP address, so nope, no SSL handshake happening. In the log messages, you see that as well. Server name, failback, wrong. So the SNI host name was not correct. Whereby if I come with a host name, then it's connecting. Now I'm a bit surprised that he's saying I have no client cert. I didn't enable client certs, did I? Oh, I have enabled client certs. Yeah, that's of course, that makes sense. So the reason for that, my bad, I was playing with ESP before. So let me change that. Okay, that was something I was showing in a minute anyway. Good. So with a host name, we get to our server, so that's correct. But with an IP address, you won't, because the SNI host name was not set. Yeah, good. So we have now shown or demonstrated SSL version 3, TLS 1.0, SNI hostname. Now, client certificate. So here we go. We enable the client certificate again. I force now a client certificate to be present. So no matter if I come with an IP or with a name, he will ask me for a certificate. If I don't send a certificate, I get a certificate auth error message, and he will tell me as well, yep, the client did not send any certificate, but a certificate is needed to continue. And if that is not sent, then we are not continuing. Now, I just see that there are a few questions. Is this host name fully qualified name? I mean, actually, the SNI host name is a fully qualified name because it's what the host field is saying. So if I just say, we can actually go there. If we just do it short, let's do that. Then you see here, the SNI host name need to be fully qualified. With a short name, it does not matter. It does not work. So yes, SNI host name is a fully working name. So that was a question in the chat, and I hope I demonstrated that. I will also answer that online now. Yes, SNI host name is fully qualified. Cool. Now, okay, so what was on our list as well? So now these were the things where a user cannot see that we get there. Okay, so we don't know if we can reach the page or not. They cannot make any connection. Now we had the logs. It was showing us if the log does not say anything, then the likelihood is very good that the client never even comes to the load balance in the first place. There's no route to get to the load balance, all right? So that's why the log is very, very good to know that. Okay, access denied because of ESP. We can do that as well. So let me get my lab back up. So let's correct this. We don't force an SNI host name now. We don't force a client certificate now, but we do ESP. And in ESP, we only allow this host name. And if I come with something else, I won't get through. So as you see now, of course, a certificate warning because I'm not fully qualified. So if I come with a name, I'm getting through. But if I come with an IP address, of course, I get a certificate warning. The IP address is not part of my domain. But now I get an access denied. If you want to see that as well, it's in error code 403. There you can see it. Status 403, access denied. Why did I get an access denied? Some kind of security was kicking in, and we can find that on extended log files, security logs. He is telling me exactly why this was happening. I came with the wrong host name. The host name was supposed to be extranet.progressdemo.com, but I only have an IP address here, so I'm by default blocked. Now, there is another question. Is there a way to see a content rule processing in the logs? Dania, I like that thought. I think it's a feature request, but right now, no, it does not log when a content rule is triggering. The thing is there. Content rules can be placed on multiple different ways. They can be used for blocking, but they can also be used for steering or allowing something through or not, right? So the amount of logs you would generate would be tremendous. So there's not really a log that says you're not allowed through because of that rule triggered. But I'm fully with you there. I think for block rules that kind of should end up in a deny, that for those they should be locked. I'm fully with you on that page. So if you lock a feature request, or if you find a feature request, send me a link. I will vote for that as well. The more votes we find for a feature request, the more likely they're gonna be implementing them. But I'm fully with you. If something is triggered by a content rule, it should be in the logs. I'm fully with you. Not for the scheduling part, but for the deny part, that's for sure. Okay. But we get to that in a second. So right now, ESP, my host name was not right. The same behavior would happen when you come with a directory that you have not allowed. Okay, so for instance, let's trigger this right now. I'm only doing. Where's my? Here we go. Right now, I'm allowing every directory through. But if I take the star away, I would only allow root through. But that means everything else that is requested would get denied. So you see, there's no logo anymore. There's no favicon anymore. Reason for that, very simple. Those two requests have been denied. The normal page is still there, but everything else that is loaded with the page is now denied. And my security logs, they show that. You see here, the logo was denied. I come in with something directory-wise that was not allowed. So only part of my page is working because everything else that was requested is denied. So this is visual things obviously on your client side, something is not loading up properly. This is a security piece. Okay, let me clear that in again. So now let's presume ESP is working again. There you see, page, all good. Now, how about the WAF? What does the WAF block look like? So a WAF block we can enable the WAF engine. Here we go. You see here my threshold, I've set that to 4. So if I trigger a 5-point rule, I will definitely get a deny, okay? What we do, I just turn off ESP for now because I want to show the IP address. So if I come with an IP address, I now get my page working. So that's good. But has the WAF worked? Yes, the WAF did work. You find here that there were 2 requests, one's for the normal web page and the second request for my logo, obviously. There you see. And I come in with a numeric host name. It was triggering the rule 3 points each time. So I was below my threshold, okay? I didn't have enough points for my threshold to be triggered. But if I would now say, okay, I'm a bit naughty now, I would, for example, pretend to be a bad person, a bot or something like that. So let me just open that. Network conditions, and now we are just presuming we are a bot like zgrab. Now we do a refresh. Oh, we got an access denied. What has happened? So in this case, the WAF, you see that here in the false positives, I've triggered 2 rules in one go, 2 rules in combination. They turned out to be 8 points because the zgrab rule, the bot rule is 5 points value. So now I have 8 points value, which is of course higher than my threshold, and now the WAF has triggered and denied. So now you see here in the false positive, that was the reason my rules have denied me. Okay. Of course, you can look into those rule sets. You see it here, what was requested, and it triggered those points. Now, because the content switching was Nigel, I like your question. So Nigel just said for everyone, Nigel just had the question, can we change the access denied message to make it more fancy? Nigel, for the core rule sets, I'm afraid not, but if you write your own rules, I've made a webinar on WAF custom rules. So that was in May, I think. You can set your own message in there. You can say rule XYZ has triggered because of this and this and this. So yes, with your own rules, when you write your own rules and they trigger, you can change those messages to be more fancy. Yes. For the core rule set, I'm afraid no, because they're already made as a deny. But yeah, for your own rules, yes, you can. I hope that answers your question. Cool. Let me just type this out as well on the chat. With you. So I'm just answering those questions that were on here. Whereby, now that I said that, Nigel, but I need to confirm that. I need to ask a person there who's very good on the core rule set. You have the ability to write your own rule, which will impact other rules. So you might be able to set a global thing, but I need to double check that. So there might be a way of doing the content rules just when I was thinking about it. The core rules. Maybe there's a way to override the access denied, but honestly, I need to double check that. I need to verify it myself. I haven't had the use case yet, but I will follow up on this question. Yeah. So I will definitely talk to a person to see if there's an option to change the access denied to something else. Maybe you can write down here in the chat what other message you like to display or something like that. So I have something valid to go to the WAF person there with something valid on my hands, if that is okay with you. I mean, on the other hand, a potential attacker, you don't want to give them too much detail. So access denied is pretty nice, but for troubleshooting purposes, I'm fully with you. To see what rule has triggered and why would be nice, but on the end of the day, for an attacker, you don't want to give that information to them either, right? But shoot here in the messages, shoot what you like to see as a message instead of the access denied. Cool. Now, let's pretend to do something something else. So I'm now not doing the WAF anymore. Let's do content rules, because that was something we had here as a message. So let's have a rule. For example, maybe I have one already. No, I have not. Let's create a rule to say I want to block every browser that is not Edge. Let's do it that way. So block browser other than Edge. Oh, yeah. American keyboard. I will never learn this. Sorry, guys. Okay, so what do I want to do? I want to match content. That's correct. Header field will be user minus agent. And we want now to match on something that's called Edge, right? So regex always starts with a slash. I'm not doing now the roof, and I'm not doing the $sign, because in a browser agent, just to show this to you, if I'm opening any kind of page, right? And we are now matching the the user agent. So when I have any kind of page, whatever it is, you have loads of headers in there, right? For example, the user agent. And you see here, Edge is EDG. So that is the piece we want to match on, right? So that's when we want to match on Edge. Chrome obviously is Chrome, and so on. So Edge has this user agent. Let's copy it out just to see a difference. So regex 101. So this is one user agent we got from Edge. Now, what is the user agent for Chrome? Let's do this, F12. Sorry, that was the wrong page. Maybe we do it here. So F12, here we go. Too many things open. There we go. So the user agent for Chrome, come on, show me, come on here. Here we go. So all of them have their own kind of signature, okay? So now what's the difference? In the Chrome one, there's no mentioning of Edge, right? That just doesn't exist in here. So if I want to match on Edge, you see I have only one match. So there will be stuff in front of Edge, and there might be stuff after Edge as well. So now I have a complete match of that user agent, okay? So Edge need to be part of it, otherwise it's not working. If you want to be very nice, we can even say, okay, we want to take the slash as well. So we need a backslash and a forward slash. So now the slash is included. So that means we have a nice rule we can copy, and we can take that into our load balancer. But I said in the use case, I want to match everything other than edge. We only want to allow edge, right? So I now say, okay, I ignore capitalized, but I want to negate this. So match everything else than edge. If there's anything in that does not include edge, then this rule is triggered. And now I'm doing a fail on match. Oh, nice. Create rule. So we have now created a rule that will block anything that is not Edge browser. I will assign that rule in my selection rules. There we go. And now, if I'm coming from Chrome, I get an empty response. But if I come from Edge, it should work for me. And it does, right? Because I'm coming with the user agent. Here we see it. The user agent has Edge in there. So now it's working. But for Chrome, I get an empty response. It's not working. Now, yes, there is no log that's telling me now he cannot connect because of a content rules. That's what I, Danya, that's where I get your point. This should be logged somehow that my rule has triggered. But if that rule triggers and denies it, it only means that that client is not allowed to go to any of your destinations, either sub-VSs or your real servers. It's not allowed to go further. But you have a non-available redirect handling. So I could now say, okay, it's, for example, gets not acceptable, 4 or 6. And I say here a message that access from that browser or application is not accepted. Okay, so that means I'm not getting an empty page anymore. I get this message because I'm not allowed to go any further, right? I'm now just getting this error message because no one is allowed to go. I'm not allowed to go to any sub VS or VS. Now, Ugo, you can do /edge as well. That's totally fine for you. That's right. He just had a question on the parser because I did the .* in the front and the .* in the end. That something is matching before and in the back. You can, right. So as you can see here now, I'm matching the full amount of user agent string. If you don't do the .*, then you would only match one piece. But you're right, that should still work. So even that piece should still work. You're right. And let's just test this out. We changed the rule now. Where is it gone? Here we go. Modify. I will now just do the edge. That should also do the trick. You're right. But I personally prefer always to match entirely. Yeah, you see it's still working. So yes, you can match it that way as well. I'm just a fan of having it precisely in the 100% match. I just don't like partial matches, but that's fine. Okay, now there's another question. Is the session reported, made available? Absolutely, this session is recorded and will be on YouTube like all the other technical campings before. Yes. Now, I was wasting a lot of time. We need to continue. So we have done empty response, content rule. I didn't do it on Cake. I now did it on the browser. We have access denied with ESP and WAF. So let's continue on. What kind of logs do we have on the load balancer? Some of you already saw. So there's boot logs, which tell you the boot, tells you that load balancer is actually based on Ubuntu. It tells you warning logs, which are your logs for your audits. When did what change happen from who? System message logs, which show you nearly everything. You can add additionally to that, you can add the SSO debug traces or extended debug traces. Then we have WAF, event logs, name server logs, that's geo, and the extended logs, ESP logs for connection log security and user logs. I also put a slide together with a few more informations. What kind of systems do you see? What can you see in your log files? I already mentioned it now a second ago. Just to look out for the extended logs, when you do export them via syslog, they are not locally stored anymore. They will be just on syslog, just to FYI. Where can I find the log files? On system log files, you have boot messages, warning, system messages, and the server log files, name server log files, and also WAF will show up here as well. And SSO manager debug traces is in debug options, and then SSO debug traces. This is communication to LDAP, to radios, to RSA, secure ID, stuff like that, Kerberos. This is all that communication you can enable the trace here. By default, it's not recorded. And the extended log files, these are our ESP logs. So anyone who is blocked on 403, check for the security log first if ESP is enabled. This gives you who's connecting when did they got authenticated and or not, and why, and what have they requested, when were they logged out, were they blocked, and so on, what user agent header. That's all in the user logs. Very, very nice. I love them. Security logs, who was blocked and why. SSO domain down, so if your LDAP is down, this is all happening here. And connection logs, when was someone connected and to what server. How can you export logs? You can export logs via API, so you can call them down. You can save your logs via API. Just to show that to you, oops, go back. Let me go to the other screen here. Just to demo this to you as well, I can go to a load balancer and tell him, hey, do this for me. So I can go to my LoadMaster. Let's say I'm going to my second load balancer for this. And I can say access and then logging, save logs. It will give me a basic prompt. And as you see now, I got a file downloaded with my logs, which once it's finished downloading, so it's interesting. That's something weird on the browser sometimes that happens. I need to close the browser, I guess. Let's do this on Edge, it might be faster. I have an issue with the browser, I'm sorry. Live demos, always fun. There's always something going wrong. It's so amazing. So you see, it downloaded the file, so we can go to the location and you can unzip that file. Here we go. I can unzip this again. And oops. And now you see I have my normal logs open, and if I open them, you see I have the logs of that machine available for me. So no rocket science. It's really something you can use API call to download, right? The same works with the extended log files, okay? And there you can even say I want a specific one, Okay, so for example, I can now say we go to my unit 1. Maybe even let's generate a log just for you to see that. So I enable ESP. I'm only allowing someone through with form-based authentication just in case. Normal form. Where am I? Here we go. And my normal progress domain. Here we go. Now, of course, there we go. I need to authenticate. Only after authentication, I'm through. I needed to authenticate. Now my content rule has triggered, but that's okay. I got an authentication. That was the important piece. And now let's call here in the logging options, let's call for that log file with ESP. So it's save, and then it's the ext logs, and then I can even say which one I want. And I want, where's my equal sign? There we go. I want the user logs. So now my user logs have been downloaded, and I can of course do the same thing again, unblock them, unzip them, go into them, and now I only have the user logs in here. And when I open them, you see today my user 1 went to that web page, right? It's in the logs. Okay. So that's that part. Now time is clicking. I see that. So there's another question. How can I have more logs information for NTLM or like this? Didn't get response from server status 500. Is that a normal system message log file? Or is it already an ESP log file? Because normally the load balancer cannot do NTLM to the server. So because we don't do that, we never have the username and password, so we can never answer the challenge. So for that, we can do NTLM in the front and continue with Kerberos. You can also do delegate to server and let the server and the client deal with the NTLM part themselves. But NTLM to the back is tricky. But I would do the SSO manager debug traces, and I would enable the local debug traces. So you have an option on system log files, debug options. You can enable extended debug traces, and not the one above, because that would be globally. I only wanted that feature to be enabled. That's the third one. And then in your service now, you get a new field here called extended debug. And now you can put in what you like to see. And you can even limit that to a client you want to see it from, so you don't see tons of stuff you don't want to see. So 10.0020, so that's my client. I only want to see it for that client. And now when I connect, in my normal system message files, I now get, as you see here, I get now deeper information on what is happening for that service on that client. What is he coming with? What is he requesting, and so on. So you might, with using SSL, SSO debug traces and this, you might get more insight on your issue there. Here, but okay. Back to our presentation. I give you some links as well, how to export logs. And now I was going to demo that a little bit. So you've seen the system messages and and that. So I was going to export my logs to a different product we have in progress, and that is called WhatsUp Gold. So I found a nice use case. Why would I use WhatsUp Gold? And I'm now saying I also want my ESP logs sent to WhatsUp Gold. So WhatsUp Gold is for me is this log server, and let's go to him. So, oh, here I have him open already. Now, I hope he's not asleep today. Come on, work with me. Just clean up a little bit that browser. Try this again. What? Okay. Okay. Here we go. So WhatsUp Gold is now collecting, as you can see, it's collecting syslogs from my load balancers, which is pretty nice. But the even more amazing part is you can open a log viewer and you have options to build your own filters. Here we go. So for example, I have all ESP logs for my VLM A1. Okay, so I can actually go through and say, hey, what has happened on that user? So everything that is now logged in, for example. So let me kill that that user session here. Kill. And it doesn't matter what service we use. So I can use mail as well. Any service that is now doing authentication should cause logs. So that was OIDC authentication a minute ago because I was playing with that. So that's a log we should now actually see if everything goes according to plan. Past 30 minutes is fine. Now do apply all ESP logs. Oh, I have them separately. So you see the username, that was me just now. He was authenticated. So you see the full name, OIDC, because I have Azure in here now for OWA. So you see that I got validated straight away. So that's pretty nice because I can now build filters on specific things that are happening. So I can do the same thing on WAF. I only want to see my WAF errors, mod security errors that occur today. So earlier on, you see, we matched the zgrep. That is the WAF log that came up. So I can even build now filters for a specific service. I can even do that down on one specific machine. I can only log system changes. So when is a change being done and so on. So I can now filter those logs and even that going into the past. So from that perspective, I think WhatsUp Gold is pretty nice for those syslog options to fine tune and set filters on what has happened and to give you an overview. And you can, as I said, filtering is much nicer than going here and saying, okay, search for a certain thing, because it's a live log messages and it will jump anywhere. So with WhatsUp Gold, I can now filter on those things and get them into a nicer place. remote host closed connection during a handshake error when we can see the message in the log file. Remote host closed connection. I think that's an error when either the server refused. Yeah, I think the server refused the connection. Then you can see this. We are fine with the load balancer, but the server is not allowing it through. And then you see the connection is closed. Kasif. It's a specific use case. I need to look into that, but I think it's when the server is not okay with the connection coming in. No, there's no layer 4. You don't have those headers. You can't use ESP for layer 4. No, there's no connection logs on layer 4, I'm afraid, because you can't open the traffic either. It's network layer doesn't give that information. There's no log for that. Yeah, so I'm actually through with my presentation. Haha. And if there's not something else you like to see right now in the lab while we are on it, then we are able to close for now. Yes, unfortunately, ESP logs are not available on layer 4. Logging options on layer 4 are pretty limited. But I will also say feature request, right? If you can. I mean, for normal generic services, the connection logs are great. For 443 services, I think they're useless because user logs are way more important or way more interesting. But SMTP, for example, then the connection logs is very good. But layer 4, I'm afraid, does not have ESP engine running on layer 4. It's just layer 7 thing. So there you won't get any logs on that. So sorry. Okay. If there's not more questions, then I would wish you a nice week and see you again in September. Looking forward to that. Enjoyed the session. Thank you, guys.